Hello, and welcome back to Morning Bible. Today we will be reading through Matthew chapter 22 in the New English translation. So let's dive on in. Matthew chapter 22. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to summon those who had been invited to the banquet, but they would not come. Again he sent other slaves, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited, look, the feast I have prepared for you is ready. My oxen and fattened cattle have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they were indifferent and went away, one to his farm, another to his business. The rest seized his slaves, insolently mistreated them, and killed them. The king was furious. He sent his soldiers, and they put those murderers to death and set their city on fire. Then he said to his slaves, 'The wedding is ready, but the ones who had been invited were not worthy. So go into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet.' And those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the wedding guests, he saw a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. And he said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without wedding clothes?' But he had nothing to say. Then the king said to his attendants, 'Tie him up hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen.' Then the Pharisees went out and planned together to entrap him with his own words. They sent to him their disciples along with the Herodians, saying, 'Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You do not court anyone's favor because you show no partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?' But Jesus realized their evil intentions and said, 'Hypocrites! Why are you testing me? Show me the coin used for the tax.' So they brought him a denarius. Jesus said to them, 'Whose image is this, and whose inscription?' They replied, 'Caesar's.' He said to them, 'Then give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's.' Now when they heard this, they were stunned, and they left him and went away. The same day Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him, 'Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies without having children, his brother must marry the widow and father children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers among us. The first one married and died, and since he had no children, he left his wife to his brother. The second did the same, and the third, down to the 7th. Last of all, the woman died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had married her.' Jesus answered them, 'You are deceived, because you don't know the Scriptures or the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. Now as for the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by God? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' He is not the God of the dead, but of the living." When the crowds heard this, they were amazed at his teaching. Now when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they assembled together. And one of them, an expert in religious law, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" Jesus said to him, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these 2 commandments." While the Pharisees were assembled, Jesus asked them a question. "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" They said, "The son of David." He said to them, "How then does David by the Spirit call him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet'? If David then calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one was able to answer him a word, and from that day on, no one dared to question him any longer. And that was Matthew chapter 22 in the New English translation. I have 3 things that I want to talk about today. Probably going to be on the shorter side for them. The first one is in verse 23, the same day Sadducees who say there is no resurrection. And the reason why I bringing this up is that it seems, and I could be wrong here, but it almost seems like the Sadducees were a fringe group of believers. If you look at the Pharisees, the gospel authors don't feel the need to explain who they are. But when it comes to the Sadducees, they have to clarify, oh, these are the people that say there's no resurrection. It's almost like how you would talk about a Mormon when someone's asking you about them. It's like, oh, they're the people that believe that they'll become gods when they die and that they'll have their own planet to rule over and be the god of that planet. Weird stuff that Mormons believe if you actually look into it. But I would also, in the same vein, sort of hope that you don't look into it. It's almost like it's better that it's just a mystical thing that you don't know about. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was interesting that Matthew added that little parenthetical to make sure everyone knew who he was talking about. Moving on to number 2, it is in verse 30, the first half. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage. And just from my own personal anecdotal experience, I would guess that it's a somewhat more modern idea that whoever you marry on earth is going to be your spouse in heaven. And it seems like people, if they read this verse, just completely gloss over it. This verse is pretty clear that we're not going to have a spouse in heaven. There's not going to be anyone to give you in marriage, and there's not going to be anyone that you marry in heaven. And you're also not going to already be married in heaven. When you are married, that marriage is for earth. I would imagine that we're not going to care at all about being married when we are in heaven because we are going to be worshiping God 24/7 for eternity. So I think the last thing on our minds would be being married. Also, just think about it for a second in a different light. Say you're the one that dies first, and on the last day, you're up there, however it's gonna be, and you're trying to find your spouse, and you keep looking, and you keep looking, and your spouse is nowhere to be seen. And then you come to find out that your spouse wasn't actually a believer, and so is not in heaven with you. Imagine how devastating that would be. I personally am of the opinion that we will not remember anything from earth when we are in heaven. And when you think about the marriage thing in that sense, where you're trying desperately to find the person that you were married to on earth because you want to spend eternity with them, only to find out that they're in hell, that's heaven is supposed to be a place where there will be no more tears. So why would that happen? You would imagine that there would be a lot of tears in that situation. However, that's just my thoughts on it. I am very willing to be proven incorrect on that. If someone can give me Bible verses to disprove that belief, it's not something that I'm hardcore on. It's just a sort of fringe belief that I think makes a lot of sense, especially when you take this verse into that scenario that I was talking about. And now the third thing I want to talk about, really verse 46 only. No one was able to answer him a word, and from that day on, no one dared to question him any longer. And I know that at this point, the Pharisees already want to kill Jesus. They're already plotting it. But I couldn't help but wonder if this situation sort of pushed them to wanting to do it more. Because not only did Jesus make the Sadducees completely silent, basically shut them up, he also shut up the Pharisees, and no one wanted to question him after that. So yeah, it just makes me wonder if that's when their rage started really boiling over, and they really started putting in the work to try to figure out when and how they were going to kill him or get him killed. And this isn't something that matters at all. It was just a thought that popped into my head when I was reading. I think that will be it for me today. If you want to reach out to me for any questions or comments, or to answer any questions I pose, you can contact me at morningbiblepod@gmail.com. Tomorrow, we will be reading Matthew chapter 23, and I will see you then.